a cornerstone of the West Side El Paso restaurant scene. Avila's Mexican food restaurant has been a staple amongst the diets of West Side El Pasoans for decades. Opening up in 1984, Avila's has been situated at 6232 North Mesa Street since its inception. And while the building that makes up Avila's may seem quite small, no flavors loom quite as large in West Side El Paso as that of Avila's, which has been a favorite amongst Mexicans and non-Mexicans alike since its inception. And with all of this praise, I decided to try out Avila's Mexican food restaurant for myself. And after a grandiose meal of rich flavors, Avila's Mexican food restaurant does live up to its hype due to great tasting food and great affordability, even if it lacks some authenticity. The criterion for which I conducted my evaluation were that of flavor, affordability, and authenticity. I'm Samuel Kligman, and it's time to evaluate Avila's Mexican food restaurant. Let's get after it. Firstly, let's review the flavor at Avila's Mexican food restaurant. According to Roldan Chavez, one of the managers at Avila's has very good chili flavored food, and I agree, for I found Avila's to have very good flavored food. To evaluate the flavor at Avila's Mexican food restaurant, I ordered 4 items off their menu. I ordered the chili con queso dip with corn tortillas, the number 1A combo that came with 2 ground beef tacos, 1 red cheese enchilada, rice and beans, the number 2 combo which came with 1 red cheese enchilada, 1 ground beef taco, rice and beans, and also a chili relleno with Spanish sauce, and finally the chicken fajita salad that came with chicken, lettuce, tomato, cheese, and a fried tortilla shell. Now, firstly, the chili con queso dip was extremely tasty. It was very creamy from the cheese, but it also had a delicious flavor that came from the long strips of hatch green chilies that were in the chili con queso, and they worked very well because there wasn't too much cheese or too much chili. There was a perfect ratio of the two, and they mingled very well in my mouth, and it just had an extremely tasty flavor. My only critique with regards to this dish is that I would have liked to have had a little bit more of a bite from the hatch green chilies. They had great flavor, but I would have liked to have had a little bit more of a bite from it. Now, with regards to the number 1A combo that I ordered, I found the ground beef tacos in it to be extremely delicious. There is a perfect ratio of shell to meat, and then there is also a perfect amount of lettuce and cheese on top, not so much as to overpower the meat itself, but not too little that you could barely taste it and the meat was overpowering it. And the meat also had a little bit of a bite that was perfectly counteracted by the freshness and the crispness of the lettuce and the tomato, and was also partially cooled down by the cheese as well. And they also created this beautiful myriad of flavor within my mouth that also had great texture due to the crunchiness of the taco shell. And also in this meal, I also found the red cheese enchiladas to be extremely enjoyable. There wasn't too much cheese within the tortilla so as to overpower the whole thing. The tortilla itself was extremely delicious, not too crisp, but not too soft. And then the sauce was very good. I loved the sauce because it had great flavor and spice. It didn't sacrifice one for the other. It had a perfect amount of both. So I had this tremendous flavor with a small amount of bite, but that was a still perfect amount of bite that helped create an enjoyable experience. And also the rice and beans were very strong as well. Now, with regards to the number 2 combo plate, all of my comments are the same because most of the items are the same, except for the fact that the number 2 combo plate had the chili relleno, and the chili relleno was the star of my whole meal. It was absolutely delicious, and I would urge anybody who goes to Avila's to try it, because not only did it have this delicious cheese inside the chili, but it had this golden batter that's encompassed the whole chili that was extremely crunchy and added this extremely nice texture. But the best part was that of the sauce they had. They had this delicious Spanish sauce, which had a little bit of bite, a little bit of sweetness, and also a little bit of a cinnamon kick to it that created this quite unique flavor that I found quite enjoyable. I didn't like it at first, but it grew on me as my meal came, and I came to enjoy it a lot. So I highly recommend you check out the chili relleno. And then lastly, the chicken fajita salad. I found that to be the weakest item out of all the items I ordered. So it had great flavors from the lettuce, the tomato, the cheese, and the fried tortilla. That is to be expected. The most important part of this is that of the chicken themselves. Now, the chicken had good flavor on its own, but the seasoning just overpowered the flavor of the chicken. So they used Italian dressing to season the chicken, and it is quite flavorful, but when you just put too much of it, I was just tasting chicken through the medium of the Italian dressing. It was just Italian dressing. It was like opening up your bite and just putting non-flavored chicken with Italian dressing it was just too much Italian dressing overall. It was a good flavor, but honestly, it was just too much of the flavor. I ordered chicken fajitas. I didn't order Italian dressing. Now, overall, even despite the chicken fajita salad, I found my meal to be extremely enjoyable, and I'm not alone in this opinion, for according to Thrillist magazine, a pop culture review site, Avila's Mexican food restaurant was named one of the top Mexican food restaurants in El Paso. And according to Thrillist, Avila's has, quote, a taste of old El Paso, end quote. And despite all of this praise from myself and Thrillist, that is not shared by every single review site that I found. For according to the AAA review site, Avila's Mexican food restaurant just gets a 1.9 out of 5, with 5 being the highest rating that they give to restaurants, meaning that essentially they found Avila's food to be below par. And while I fundamentally disagree with that, that must be taken into consideration. And the only reason that I can feel as if they gave it such a low rating is that if you are not a big fan of grease, then you may not find Avila's to be enjoyable, because there is a lot of grease in their food. So if your stomach is sensitive to that, I urge you to avoid Avila's. But overall, I found Avila's Mexican food restaurant to have extremely strong flavors, and I would urge anyone to check it out just for those flavors alone. Secondly, let's take a look at the affordability of the prices at Avila's Mexican food restaurant. Overall, I found Avila's to have very affordable prices. According to Avila's Mexican food restaurant, the vast majority of their dishes fall in the $7 to $13 range. The only dishes that fall below this range will be found in some of their burritos and some of their kid dishes, and the only prices that are above this range can be found in that of some of their meat dishes or some of their super combination plates. But overall, for a family looking to splurge on a nice meal, they will find such a nice meal at Avila's with very affordable prices. And these prices are also affordable considering the fresh quality of the ingredients, the delicious flavors as I described in my first point of analysis, and thirdly, the large portion sizes. When I ordered Avila's for my family, all of the dishes perfectly satiated our individual needs by themselves. This just speaks to the large portion sizes and the affordability that we found at Avila's Mexican food restaurant. And in fact, according to Roldan Chavez, Avila's Mexican food restaurant can be described as not the cheapest, but not the most expensive food that you will find. Essentially, what he means by this is that at Avila's, you're not going to find extremely cheap food because the food is of high quality, but you're going to find it extremely affordable for the quality that it is. And the only potential objection that I can find to his affordability is that of the chili con queso dip. The dip costs $12 for a portion size that is perfectly suitable for one person, but for a family looking for a shareable appetizer, the chili con queso dip is not going to suffice, and they'll likely have to order more because of the quite small portion size that it comes in, and this can rack up quite an expensive bill if you have to order 2, possibly even 3 dishes just for a party of 3 or 4 individuals to have a tasty appetizer. But overall, I found Avila's Mexican food restaurant to have extremely affordable prices, perfectly suitable for a nice night out on the town. The third criterion for which I analyzed Avila's Mexican food restaurant on was that of authenticity. When enjoying Avila's delicious food, a key ingredient that must be analyzed is that of authenticity, and unfortunately, Avila's is lacking in that sense. Despite labeling itself as a traditional Mexican cuisine restaurant, the vast majority of Avila's dishes resemble more of Tex-Mex cuisine than Mexican cuisine. This is seen in how Avila's menu has items that are not representative of traditional Mexican cuisine, such as that of grilled cheese, corn dogs, hamburgers, chicken tenders, and also is excluding a lot of traditional Mexican cuisine items, such as that of chiles colorado and chilaquiles. Moreover, when we look at the actual makeup of some of the foods in Avila's, we see that how they are more representative of a Tex-Mex cuisine than of Mexican cuisine. For when we look at their tacos, we see that they are clearly Tex-Mex tacos because the shells for which they make the tacos out of are hard shells. They're not soft shells. In most taquerias in Mexico, you're going to find that the majority of their shells are going to be soft shells. They're just going to be plain corn tortillas. They're not going to be fried corn tortillas that make up the hard shell that you find at Avila's Mexican food restaurant. That's because in traditional Mexican cooking, the main thing that has to stick out when enjoying that of a taco is the flavor of the ingredients themselves, not the medium through which they are presented. Therefore, for these aforementioned reasons, we see that while Avila's Mexican food restaurant has tremendous flavors, it lacks in its traditional Mexican authenticity. After evaluating Avila's Mexican food restaurant, we can come to this final evaluative statement. Avila's Mexican food restaurant lives up to its hype as a great tasting Mexican food restaurant due to great tasting flavors and affordable pricing, even if it lacks in some authenticity. The three criterion for which I used to judge this evaluation were that of flavor, affordability, and authenticity. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do you care, or why should you care about a Mexican food restaurant evaluation review? Well, simply, we are not only living in the time of the coronavirus, but we are also living in the time of an economic recession. And where you spend your hard-earned money has never meant more. And when you decide that it's time to spend your money on a nice meal, your hard-earned money, then you're spending your money at a great place when you choose to dine in or dine out at Avila's Mexican food restaurant. I'm Samuel Kligman. Thank you for coming along with me on this ride of evaluating Avila's Mexican food restaurant. See you next time, and meanwhile, keep on getting after it.